Hey guys, welcome back to another MLB DFS Slur video here on YouTube. It is August 17th, 2020. We are talking baseball specific, MLB specific DFS content for the main slate tonight starting at 7:05. 11 total games offered both on FanDuel and DraftKings. There's a St. Louis game, a doubleheader being played, so kind of ignore that. I don't think it's actually offered on either slate. But in general, we're talking 11 total games, so a decent sized slate. The outlook in general, not a lot going on in terms of pitching. We got a couple of guys we like. There's no real elite guys on the slate, but there are a bunch of bats in good spots. In general, there is not a Colorado or a Coors Field game tonight. Finally, I feel like they've played about 100 home games so far this year, so that's good to know. We can stay away from getting sucked into that Coors Field high-scoring trap or fading it, whatever we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. But in general, FanDuel, we're going to be diving into their app here, talking about pitchers, stacks, and one-off bats. Like we always do in these Slur videos, we'll try to quickly get through it. We won't get into specifics too much here, but we will talk about some of my favorite plays. We'll mention here, I apologize for putting this video out so late in the day. I typically like to get these videos out nice and early for you guys, but we're dealing with FanDuel here, and they've been an absolute mess for about the past week. Last Friday had a big outage about an hour or two before lock. For MLB, for baseball, basketball, whatever it might be playing, they had to refund money. They had to refund money again last night. They went down for maintenance mode for about 15, 16, maybe even longer hours. I think it was since 11 o'clock last night, maybe. Not totally sure, but it's been an absolute mess. But we're going to give them one more chance here. We're going to dive into the main slate on FanDuel. I do like the one-pitcher format. I've mentioned it before. We're going to start at the pitcher position since that is my favorite. A couple of different ways you can go tonight. As I mentioned, not really any elite pitchers on the slate. A lot of $7,000 to $8,000 range pitchers. So you can get really creative here. I'll first start with Zach Gallen. I'm not going to be starting him tonight, but he's having a decent year in a good spot pitching at home versus Oakland. Oakland has been okay. They're not that bad of a team versus right-handed pitching. So in general, I'm going to be fading him. There's just nothing that stands off the page in terms of Gallen. I think he's going to be highly owned, so I will be avoiding him. The first guy I will mention, though, is coming down a little bit here in Griffin Canning. Haven't played him much this year. Not having the greatest year, but he's certainly in a good spot, pitching at home against the San Francisco Giants. He's actually my highest graded pitcher on the slate, ahead of Gallen even in raw points scored. I'm using Daily Fantasy Nerd here. Would encourage you guys to check it out too. It really helps sort out a lot of these pitchers, especially when we're dealing with a lot of these mid-tier guys. Daily Fantasy Nerd, great optimizer, great bankroll management. Link is down in the description. But in general, Griffin Canning is the highest graded guy projected for tonight. So the good thing is he's playing for LA. They are a huge favorite at home. I always like to take at-home pitchers against San Francisco. San Francisco only projected at 4.31 runs, so a very low total there. Good spot for him. He is projected by Vegas to throw 6 strikeouts tonight, so a little bit higher than what he's averaging this season. Good things there. And again, they're a huge favorite. 62% chance of LA winning this game according to Vegas. So you got to like that. He should get a 4, hopefully 5+ inning game, 6 strikeouts, not give up very many runs, if any at all. San Francisco has a very, very weak lineup. We've been attacking them all year, especially when they're on the road. They're just not really doing much damage against anyone, really, good or bad. So I really like Griffin Canning tonight as my number one pitcher at $7,800 and a very reasonable price tag. As I mentioned, we're hoping for 5+ innings here. Maybe give up a run or two, get the quality start. Should certainly get the W. Maybe we can get 35, 40 points out of him tonight. I really like him as my number one overall pitcher. But outside of him, I'm scrolling down a little bit here Actually, we're scrolling up, to $8,100. Ross Stripling, another at-home pitcher. Always like to take pitchers at home. It's just a better spot. They usually pitch better. The guy's pitched okay this season. We know he has some good upside. We saw earlier this season against the team we just talked about. He pitched at home versus San Francisco, 7 innings, 7 Ks. Checked every box there, win, start, even gave up a run, but 49 points. He has the upside of 50+ points. We saw it a couple times last year. He's a decent pitcher. He's in a great spot here, though. In general, he's a massive favorite. Los Angeles, 74% chance of winning the game, so we should be in line for another W today, hopefully a quality start. And Seattle, a very, very bad offensive team this year, one of the worst on the entire slate. They have a 24% K rate, very middle of the road. but their WOBA and their ISO are bottom 5 and bottom 10 in the league versus right-handed pitching. So very, very bad. Again, it's a home game for him. Heavy favorite. 3.75 total runs, the lowest on the board projected for Seattle, well below that 4 that we like to target. He's projected, as I mentioned, 5 or 6 Ks here. I like the position. He's a very safe play in my opinion. I think his floor is probably 20 with an upside of 50. I'm going Ross Stripling as my number 2 pitcher, and those are really the only 2 guys I'm interested in playing. I'm going to keep it kind of light tonight. There's not a lot of ways we can go, but those are the 2 guys. I'm going Canning and Stripling, both pitching at home, both LA pitchers. I like both spots for them tonight on FanDuel. Now, if we want to talk stacks, the first stack I'm going to target is going to be the Los Angeles Angels. A lot of people are going to stick to the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight for good reason. Massive, massive favorite, as I mentioned. A lot of runs projected for them. But I do like the Angels as my number 1 team. They are number 2 on the board right now. They've bumped up. Well, actually, they weren't actually. Earlier today when I did the research, they didn't have a line on them. But they are projected number 2 at 5.69 runs. A lot. If I can find the pitcher they're facing here. A lot of runs projected for this team. Facing Tyler Anderson, a younger pitcher, $5,700 for him. Obviously not going to be playing him, but he's pitching on the road here. Has not really done anything. Early on, he was only pitching a couple of innings. Has pitched 5+ in the latest couple of games. 4 earned runs in his most recent starts. There's just nothing exciting about this guy. Everything's lining up. He's a left-hander. LA is absolutely loaded with right-handed bats, great right-handed bats, whether you're talking Trout or Rendon or Upton, all these guys. And I realize some of these players like Upton are more down the line in the lineup and they haven't been hitting well, but I mean, it's going to be a tough spot for if I can scroll around here. Fletcher, he's having a great right-hander. Trout, obviously. You can even go Ohtani if you want to get a left-hander in there. I talked about Upton. Just a lot of great right-handed bats. You can even go Pujols if you want to spend the money. $2,600 is, even though it's pretty cheap, it's pretty pricey for him. But just a lot of heavy, powerful right-handed bats. The guy, specifically Anderson, he's given up 387 WOBA, 5.6 xFIP, only a 17% strikeout rate, and giving up nearly 2 home runs per 9 to right-handed bats. So all the right-handed bats for LA in a great spot. I think everyone's going to flood that Dodgers game for good reason. I'm going to talk about them in a second, but I like the Angels as my number 1 stack playing at home tonight versus Anderson and the San Francisco Giants. So I did just mention them. If I'm going to give you a number 2 here, it's going to be the Dodgers themselves. The Dodgers pitching or playing at home tonight. I talked about Stripling, how much I like him, but they're in a great spot versus Dunn here. Dunn is not a very good pitcher. I mean, you can see here, hasn't done much so far this year. A lot of Dunns being mentioned in these sentences, but Justin Dunn, let me see what numbers I have on him. He's a right-hander here. LA is projected at 6.07 runs. The reason I bumped them down, because originally they were projected at 6.25, but they've actually come down a little bit in terms of a Vegas total. So, always pay attention to that. If they've come down a little bit, people are seeing some things that weren't as favorable. But LA loaded, obviously, the Dodgers with left-handed power bats, whether it's Corey Seager or Cody Bellinger. You even have Muncy and Jock Peterson, who I know I've been recommending, but hasn't been he hasn't been hitting the hell out of the ball, certainly, but he hasn't been hitting well. And then, of course, you have Mookie Betts and Justin Turner. This lineup is just absolutely loaded with bats. Both those guys, Betts and Turner, right-handers, but they do hit right-handed pitching very, very well. So a lot of different ways you can go today. Pollock is a very underrated pitcher. But in general, I love the Dodgers. Number 2 stack just behind the Angels in a great spot. Dunn, as I mentioned, not a very good pitcher, but the benefit here, like I said, the Dodgers just absolutely crush right-handers. Number 2 in WOBA at 345. Number 1 in ISO as a team at 234. Number 2 at WRC plus, all versus right-handers, and they strike out at like 19% of the time. So a very low strikeout total. They're putting the ball in play, and then Seattle has one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball. So even if this guy only lasts a couple innings, that's even better. We're going to get to that Seattle bullpen. Pitching on the road in Los Angeles, just not a good situation. I do like the Dodgers, and I'd highly recommend them tonight as a stack. You could go a bunch of different ways in terms of a third stack here. Scrolling through some of my notes, Minnesota in a great spot. I do like a lot of their bats. And also Houston facing a lefty. We've been trying to play them here and there. They're not hitting the ball very well, even against lefties, but their numbers still support even in 2020. Houston is in a good spot versus any lefty. They still have great numbers in terms of WOBA and ISO and everything else associated with that, whether it's Springer. I'm not going to be playing Altuve. I think he's just a mental case right now. But Springer, Correa, Bregman, all these guys in great spots. If you want to, either sprinkle them in or even possibly go with a stack here, they're not as cheap as they should be, in my opinion. That's why they're so far down my list. But Houston in a good spot. And the last stack I want to mention here is Minnesota. Minnesota facing a left-hander playing at home today versus Kansas City. Bubic, the left-handed pitcher for Kansas City. You can see if we scroll through his numbers, just hasn't done really anything. Gave up 5 earned at Cincinnati, 2 earned at Chicago, and before that, the White Sox gave up 2 earned runs there. Again, not pitching very much. There's not a lot of data on him in terms of a career, but left-handed pitching versus Minnesota is a nightmare, especially in Minnesota. Whether it's Cruz or Polanco, two great, well, Polanco's a switch hitter, but Cruz obviously crushes left-handers, so we do like him. Sano is an excellent right-handed bat. Who else do we have here? Kepler, the left-hander. Rosario is a left-hander. You can play both of them just because you're going to get to that bullpen pretty early. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else. Garver's a right-hander. He's hitting second today. So all these right-handers you could load up for Minnesota here. I have no issue with that. They are a team that I will get exposure to, and you could possibly go with as a stack. And last but not least here, just to mention some random bats. I talked about Cruz. Absolutely love Cruz anytime you're facing a left-hander. I do like, let me see here. I do like Soto, $4,600. He's getting pricey, but man, this kid is just killing the ball, hitting .425 right now. He's on an absolute tear, so I think it's hard to fade him right now. Cody Bellinger, if you're going to be playing, whether you're playing that Los Angeles Dodgers stack, he's a good one-off. Even beyond that, I think I like Matt Olson tonight as an unusual play, but one that's in a good spot. Versus Arizona, you're going to be taking advantage of that Gallen. Olson, a good lefty. Gallen does struggle versus lefties at times. So I think if you want to kind of take that leverage or get some leverage there with a lot of people starting him, I do think JD Martinez is going to go under owned tonight. Not a lot of people are going to look his way. Boston, hitting third, obviously. A right-hander that, again, crushes left-handed pitching, has always done that. Career numbers, it's not a short sample size. JD Martinez at $3,700. I really, really like him. You could even go with Gary Sanchez if you want to get risky, but he has been hitting the ball. Gary Sanchez, obviously. What am I doing? Martinez. Sanchez, obviously the catcher for the New York Giants. If I could spell. He's hitting 5th tonight, so he's moved up the order 2 spots. Last night was 6th. Now he's hitting 5th. He's hitting the ball. He's actually, he has 4 hits in his last 4 games. Has a couple of 3 home runs in the last 4. So he's having a good couple of games here, finally starting to put things together after a really bad start. Only $3,000. You've got to really like that price. I like Hosmer tonight versus Texas in a good spot. Lefty on righty. Jordan Lyles absolutely struggles mightily versus left-handers. So any lefties for San Diego are in play tonight. I wanted to attack Lyles initially, but there's just not a lot lefties in that San Diego lineup. Tony Kemp, second baseman. We find him for you. Only his price will not rise for some reason for Oakland. He was hitting higher in the order. I think he will be again against Zach Allen tonight. So you have a lefty. He's hitting the ball. I mean, the price is only $2,000, so he helps you there. And last but not least here, I've recommended him in the past, but I do like Corey Dickerson tonight for Miami. He's not starting, so sorry about that. Sorry for recommending that. Let's scratch that one. But that's it. I mean, those are the guys I'm really looking at as one-offs. You have my pitchers. I'm going with Canning, and I'm going with Stripling tonight. You have my stacks. The Angels number 1, Dodgers 2. I do like Minnesota and Houston as some kind of off-tilt stacks there. But that's about it. I hope you guys enjoy these videos. I do truly hope they are helpful. The last thing I would mention here is I did check out weather a couple of times today. That Boston-New York game is looking a little dangerous, especially if you're, for whatever reason, considering any pitching. So rain, make sure you check before lock on that game. You also have this Toronto-Baltimore game, similar area, East Coast, also showing some significant amount of rain today. So be careful if you're starting anybody from those games. Make sure you check. But as I mentioned, a lot of good spots tonight. Very, very narrow on pitching. We have our stacks. We have our one-off bats. Again, hopefully these videos are quick and they are helpful for you guys. Sorry for the delay. Blame FanDuel and their app and everything else that's wrong with it. As always, if you guys are new here or simply haven't done so already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, like these videos. It's the easiest way to help support No Huddle Fantasy Sports, support these small channels here on YouTube. And last but not least, go down in the description, check out Daily Fantasy Nerd. You get a couple of months free. It is a free, I'm sorry, it's not a free. Eventually you would have to pay for it, but it is it's an excellent MLB optimizer. Football's coming out soon. They offer all sports. You don't have to sign up separately for different sports. You just select the sport you want, whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel. They do offer Yahoo and Fantasy Draft if you want to check that out also. I'm not sure if you're interested in that, but it's been great. I've used it for at least the last 5 years to my advantage. I think it's an underrated optimizer that doesn't get talked a lot. So check it out down in the description below. But besides that, good luck tonight. Make sure you stay aware of those weather effects in those weather games, and I wish you the best of luck. I'll catch you in the next video.